It's just after lunch on board Qantas Flight 72 from Singapore to Perth.
Sir, would you like a drink?
Qantas flight attendant Fuzzy Maeva is busy attending to passengers in the cabin.
Orange juice for you, madam?
If I can make your flight a lot easier, I'm your man. And I thought it was going to be another great day.
Up in the cockpit,
How's everything doing? Very good.
Captain Kevin Sullivan has just climbed back into his seat after a rest break, when suddenly the plane's autopilot disconnects.
Autopilot 1 appears to have disconnected.
And then we started getting stall warnings.
Stall.
And then we started getting overspeed warnings.
Stall.
And then it happens.
Stall.
The plane, it started going down, pitching down, violently down.
Tonight, for the first time, the previously untold story of Qantas's worst ever accident.
Bang, my head went through the cabin ceiling.
How a plane went psycho, injuring 100 passengers and crew.
You died 6 or 7 times on the operating table.
I'm lucky to be here alive.
And destroying once happy lives.
It got to the point where I tried to take my own life.
The hero pilot who fought against his own plane to save his passengers and crew.
The automation is there to keep you safe. It was actually trying to kill us.
And how the lessons of Qantas Flight 72 have gone unheeded.
All of us are deeply sorry for the loss of life.
With 2 planes crashing within 6 months of each other, killing all 346 people on board.
When you see what's happening with the 737 MAX accidents, they're the same. They were in no man's land. They didn't know what was happening. And their instinctive reaction to pull back and stop the ground from hitting them was not enough to save the day.
Kevin Sullivan doesn't fly anymore. What happened that day in the skies over the Indian Ocean has affected him profoundly.
I could have hidden it, but I think it's more courageous to be honest with yourself and honest to say, it's affected me. I don't shirk my responsibility as a commercial pilot and a captain. I reached the point where it was best that I stop.
Growing up in California, Kevin always dreamed of being a pilot. And by his early 20s, he was a Top Gun fighter pilot in the US Navy.
As a F-14 pilot in the Cold War, I flew off aircraft carriers. The landing area moves. At night, you can't see the landing area until you're actually on it. We were essentially at war. We trained and flew to that level of extreme readiness.
Then came an opportunity to fly Mirage jets as part of an exchange program with the Royal Australian Air Force.
It's a speed machine. At low level, I've been very fast. Over 600 knots, 1,200 kilometers an hour.
The young American loved Australia and those jets so much, he ended up settling here.
After you, Kevin.
Thank you. How did you organize this?
What do you think?
Yeah, it's pretty special.
The Mirage 3, there she is.
We called it the French lady, or the Aussies did, and I do too. Well, you can't stand on the seat.
You need a degree just to get in.
35 years along life's runway, and Kevin Sullivan's love for his French lady hasn't dimmed.
It's just like getting into a Formula One car. You don't have much room. It becomes part of you.
Not a bad place to hone your skills.
There's no automation on this thing.
You need to know how to fly this one by hand, I tell you.
Kevin eventually moved on to a job with Qantas, flying its biggest passenger jets.
How's everything doing?
Smooth sailing.
By October 2008, he's had decades of experience as a commercial pilot, but it's his time as a Top Gun that will prove crucial.
We were coming up to the northwest coast of Australia. We could see it out the windscreen, and the Indian Ocean was calm and blue.
On this clear blue day at the controls of a Qantas Airbus, Captain Kevin Sullivan is about to be tested in the most dramatic way possible.
Autopilot 1 appears to have disconnected.
When was the first indication of trouble?
The autopilot disconnected, and then we started getting stall warnings. It sounds like stall. Means the plane will stop flying. It will start to go down. And then we started getting overspeed warnings.
Stall warning and overspeed at the same time.
It's impossible.
Doesn't make sense to me because overspeed is you're at your maximum limit, and stall, it means you're at your minimum speed limit.
What the hell? Get Pete back in here.
First officer to the flight deck, please.
And then the plane started moving. And initially it was a dip. And then it started going down, pitching down aggressively and violently down. It generated enough force that we had to brace ourselves against the instrument glare shield to stop from basically hitting the ceiling, even with our seatbelts secured. I was accelerating down towards the Indian Ocean, and certainly my windscreens were filled with the Indian Ocean.
QF-72 is in a death dive and refusing to let Kevin take control.
This is my broad understanding. So the plane's flying along. The sensors are giving some sort of information to the computer system that the plane is pointed upwards, so it tries to overcorrect and then obviously points you back down. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, in a way, it's saying, sorry, Kev, I'm protecting you, so I'm not going to let you stop me. Like the HAL 9000, in 2001, Space Odyssey, where Dave asks him to open the pod bay doors, and Hal says, I'm sorry, Dave, I can't let you do that. I'm pulling back on the stick, and I'm saying, hey, Hal, stop moving the nose. And it's like, I'm sorry, Kev, I can't let you do that.
But no way is this proud ex-fighter pilot going to let a rogue computer beat him.
I was in a near-death position, and I was going to fight to the death to make sure that didn't happen.
Qantas Flight 72 from Singapore is cruising comfortably at 37,000 feet.
Have a glass of white wine, please.
Glass of white wine.
In just over 2 hours, the Airbus A330 will land in Perth. It's been a routine flight. Some of the passengers on board are off-duty Qantas staff returning from holidays. Among them, Bruce Southcott, a flight services manager travelling with his wife, Caroline.
The aircraft was flying flat and still, and I watched the glass of wine sit there, without a ripple.
But up in the cockpit, the plane's flight control system is going haywire. The aircraft's computers are telling Captain Kevin Sullivan his plane is about to stall. And then, suddenly the plane is hurtling down towards the Indian Ocean.
There wasn't really any first sign, it just happened. Like the hand of God had just pushed the aircraft down. There was no, ooh, let's go as a roller coaster. It was just like slam.
Bruce is wearing his seatbelt, but Caroline is just coming back from the toilet.
I remember getting hit on the head with the plane. And I just went bang, and before I could think, bang again, and then the third bang, my head went through the cabin ceiling. After the third time that it hit me on the head, I pretty much was knocked out.
An off-duty Qantas pilot, Peter Casey, and his wife, Diana, a Qantas customer service manager, have left their seats to say hello to flight attendant Fuzzy Maeva.
Fuzzy, God love him, was down there checking out the catering as he does. The three of us chatting away.
I pasted my meal in the oven. I was focused on the timer, you see, because I was hungry. And then when I saw the exact time on it was 13 seconds. And that's when I saw the corner of my eye. Someone had just shot up. And I just sort of looked down and like the plane was like disappearing from my feet.
I heard a slight change in the airflow of the aeroplane, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. And the next thing you know, whomp up we went.
I must have hit something, I must have hit the ceiling because I was knocked out.
The three of us up in the ceiling, probably only for seconds, but it seemed like an eternity.
The Casey's daughters, 17-year-old Becky and 18-year-old Elise, are at the front of the cabin.
The first nosedive, my sister, she grabbed on to the bottom of her chair and she looked up at me as I was on the top of the aeroplane.
You were actually pinned to the ceiling.
Yeah.
Feel like forever?
It did. Felt like a few minutes.
Back in the cockpit, Kevin Sullivan is desperately trying to take back control of his plane.
We're basically fighting for our lives at this stage.
They had to very quickly discover what part of the airplane was trying to kill them and how to stop it from doing so.
If there's any other pilot who understands exactly what Captain Sullivan is facing, it's the other Sully. Captain Chesley Sullenberger lost both his engines in a bird strike and had to land his plane in New York's Hudson River.
Captain, I'd like your insight if I could. I'm trying to tap into, I guess, the anguish of that moment, what it must have been like for the pilot.
Well, at first it would have been confusing, surprising, a huge startle factor. And then one would immediately begin to act to regain control of the airplane.
Kevin Sullivan's next move is completely counterintuitive. Instead of pulling back on the control stick, he lets it go.
I have a choice to make. Do I hold on to it or do I release it? And my military training for out of control is to release, neutralize controls.
It works. The plane is no longer falling from the sky, but now passengers are being smashed back down to the floor.
We heard an almighty crash coming from the cabin, and that was the people's bodies. That was the galleys coming apart. And it sounds like a 40-foot shipping container full of cutlery and glass that is sent down a ramp into a brick wall.
It just came crashing down. My sister, she was eating and her fork went in my arm. Got a bit stuck when I came down. It's the little things that you remember.
When I came back down, I hit the armrest.
Yeah.
And then I realised that my bones were clicking in my back, and I realised that there was something terribly wrong, very wrong. I couldn't move off the floor. The staff were asking me to go back to my chair, and I couldn't get up at all. I couldn't move my legs at all.
Your legs weren't working?
Nope. My ankle was broken, so my ankle was just sort of hanging. Eventually, another passenger came and picked me up and put me in my chair.
Hit the galley bench. That's what woke me up. All I could hear was the crushing sounds. My knees going, I don't know what the heck is going on. All I see is blood rushing out of Peter's head. And Diana, she's unconscious. And then I see the two girls I was looking after. Oh man, one of them who was sat on the aisle seat, she stuck her hand out to me and she was just crying. And to me, that's like my own daughter. You know, anybody's, I mean, I just couldn't do anything. And I just felt so helpless because I couldn't move.
Back in the cockpit, Kevin Sullivan has pulled the plane out of its death dive.
What the hell was that?
But he's still fighting for control.
It's the primary flight computer.
Now we're in this revolver of faulting systems.
In effect, this is a total system collapse.
The plane is starting to melt down.
Automatic brake's not working. Spoiler's not working.
Let's get us back up to 37,000 feet.
I'm still pretty coherent. Yes, my cage is a little bit rattled because we don't know what's happening.
And just 2 minutes later,
Don't you do it.
it happens again.
I'm basically a passenger. I'm an observer now. The automation that's there is supposed to be keeping me safe, not putting me into harm's way. And I got very angry.
I thought it was the end.
Really? It was so violent, you thought you were going to die?
I think being so young as well, not having experienced life outside of high school yet, you don't really know what to expect in the big world, and honestly, I just thought that was it.
All I could hear was the sounds of we were going to die, but you just hope to God that it happens quick and
Death?
yes, and not to, I don't want to feel any pain. I was frozen like a block of ice, just waiting for it to happen.
Once again, Kevin Sullivan's military training saves his plane.
We have lost auto pitch trim.
But he has no idea if or when it will happen again.
Another failure in Prim 3. Reset?
No, don't.
Everyone responds to trauma differently. Kevin Sullivan cracks a joke. He picks a line from another of his favourite movies, Flying High.
Looks like I picked a bad day to quit sniffing glue.
First Officer Peter Lipset had been on a break when the plane went into its dive. He's injured, but he makes it back to the cockpit.
It's a shit fight out there. I think I've just broken my nose.
Congratulations. Strap in, we're in trouble.
I made the assessment that we're in trouble, and I've never used those terms in any situation prior to that in my extreme flying career.
Mayday, mayday, mayday. Qantas 72, Qantas 72. Flight control computer malfunctions and we have significant injuries on board.
Kevin Sullivan is in the fight of his life. The Qantas captain has twice managed to stop his out-of-control plane from plunging into the Indian Ocean.
Tracking direct to Learmonth.
He needs to get his 315 passengers and crew down onto the ground fast before it happens again. He heads for the nearest airport, the RAAF base at Learmonth on Western Australia's northwest coast.
I couldn't risk exposing myself and the passengers to an out-of-control airplane any longer than I had to. And Learmonth was just off our left wing, and that's where we decided to go.
In the cabin behind him, more than 100 passengers are injured.
What's happening?
Many have been knocked unconscious, others have broken bones and bleeding wounds.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the flight deck. All passengers to fasten seatbelts immediately.
Caroline Southcott is in absolute agony. Her back is broken, and a single piece of skin is keeping her foot attached to her leg. But she has no choice. She has to sit in her seat.
I was really worried my bones were going to go through my spinal cord, so I had to hold myself up on the armrests for, I think it must have been 45, 50 minutes.
It would have been easy because she said she could physically feel and hear her spine just grating like that against each other.
Yeah, it was a very funny noise. Prior to that, I've never had pain, bad pain. So it was a matter of life and death. It was a matter of suck it up, princess. You've got to do something here.
Yeah, exactly.
Caroline now notices that her nearly severed left foot is facing backwards.
During all this pain, she looked down at the ankle and said, "That's not right, I'm not happy with that." She pulled the ankle forward, rotated it, and clicked it back into place.
Reset it. I think there was no choice. It was fight or die.
In the rear galley, Peter and Diana are all badly injured. Fuzzy is desperate to get to the 2 unaccompanied children he is looking after, but his legs won't work.
I couldn't even move. I wanted to. I tried so much to reach out, and I knew I could not move.
Peter is bleeding profusely from a head wound. Diana has suffered a badly injured back and shoulder, but somehow she finds the strength to help the people around her.
I tell you what, Diana, man, she was incredible. She reminded me of the Hulk. That adrenaline came out of her, and like she could lift anything, and she made it happen. And I can hear Diana say, "Okay, Fuzzy, you're next."
Come on, nearly there.
Man.
There we go, just gotta put your belt on.
She was incredible. I'm telling you right now, man, that lady deserves recognition for what she did.
Pretty amazing wife you have there.
Very proud of her. Very proud.
Diana Casey is one of the true heroes of this story, but you won't hear her speak. It's a slap in the face to Diana's extraordinary courage, but Qantas has refused to let Diana or any of its current staff be interviewed for this program. As a former employee, Fuzzy Maeva isn't bound by such small-minded constraints.
How on earth did she manage to get Fuzzy, if you'll allow me, a reasonably big unit, up off the ground into the seat?
Oh, man, she just sort of just grabbed my pants, and just grabbed me, and like I felt like I was being pulled by a 6'8", athlete, And then she just looked at me and she just shook me and says, "We're going to be okay." And she just gave me a kiss on the forehead. Said, "You're going to be fine."
In circumstances like that, the pilot in the cockpit gives an order for people to sit down immediately. Well, that's what they've got to do. But in this circumstance, there were people that were unsecured, and she took it upon herself to break the protocol because there's a need to, and I totally, completely agree with her. There's a need to care for people that needed to be secured.
Final check.
With dozens of his passengers requiring urgent medical attention, Kevin Sullivan now has to land his crippled Airbus A330 on that remote airfield at Learmonth.
Okay, we're on visual approach. Manual thrust. Manual pitch trim.
He's now flying his aircraft entirely by hand. But Kevin knows that at any moment, the plane's computer might try to wrest back control.
You down?
1,000 feet. But now we know that at this point, if something happens, we don't have the altitude to recover.
Don't you do it.
I remember when we landed, everyone clapped.
Kevin's job was outstanding under what I would believe to be immense pressure.
Did you allow yourself just the briefest moment to look down at your arms and legs and think, my goodness, I'm alive?
No, I made another quip. I did my Arnie impersonation from True Lies. I said, "Yeah, a little bit of excitement, otherwise dull day." As we're rolling down the
You're
runway.
not even joking, are you?
I'm serious. Yeah, of course, because, that's my release.
Only now is Kevin Sullivan able to walk back through his aircraft to inspect the damage.
I call it the walk that changed my life. It's quite confronting. The interior of the cabin was almost destroyed. There are holes above the seats where passengers' heads have punctured the plastic, and there's lots of them. Of course, there were children. The children had huge contusions on their heads, where some were bleeding, and the parents are holding their children, trying to console them as I walk past, and the look of, "Look what you did to my kid," will never leave.
there was almost a moment for you as you made that walk where you felt it, that your heart was breaking. Is that true?
Yes. Time out. So this is a critical part. But that's a valid question.
I imagine that's one of the most significant moments of your life.
I'm the head honcho. I'm the one that has to show leadership and strength. But it's pretty hard when emotional chunks are being ripped off you as you move through the airplane.
Qantas Flight 72 has landed at the remote Learmonth airstrip on the northwest coast of Western Australia. Captain Kevin Sullivan has brought his plane down safely, but with so many lives in the balance, the emergency is far from over. Local rescue crews swarm through the plane.
The emergency services came on board, and it was just like, it was chaos. The pain was unbearable. I think I nearly passed out. And the next minute, I got a morphine stick stuck in my mouth. Yeah, suck on that, big fella.
I imagine that was a pretty big relief.
Yeah, he said, suck on that, big fella. I can remember that, suck on that, big fella.
As far as what happened up there, all I can say is the safest course of action was for me to come into here, not only because of the airplane's behavior, but also of the injuries that we've all sustained.
In the terminal, Captain Sullivan grabs a megaphone and addresses the passengers who've made it off the Airbus uninjured.
It's a bit of a desolate place, so I can tell you the runway looked pretty good to me. What I thought.
I made some comment about the runway looked pretty damn good to me as we rolled out for landing. And at that point, everybody was cheering again.
Kevin is relieved to be on the ground, but he now knows what was happening in the cabin while he was wrestling for control of the plane. More than 100 passengers are injured, some critically.
They were accelerated into the ceiling, and with such a force that their heads broke through the plastic.
It's not soft.
It's aviation-grade plastic.
The most seriously injured are airlifted to Perth by the Royal Flying Doctor Service. Among them, Caroline Southcott.
The pain in my back, it was pretty bad. I can remember just fighting to keep breathing because I thought if I stop breathing, I'll go unconscious and then no one's going to get me back.
You're initially thinking about, well, what's post-injury going to be like? How is she going to walk, and will she walk and all that? And then they take it to the next level and say to you, well, no, what we're saying here is that her survival is in doubt. And that's when I went, oh, that's when you do freak.
She's rushed into emergency surgery with a broken back. Her life is slipping away.
You died 6 or 7 times on the operating table.
I'm lucky I can walk, and I'm lucky to be here alive. Yeah.
How would you describe the surgery that Caroline went through?
In her graphic terms?
Yeah.
They cut me down here and they put me gizzards on the table so they could get to it. Like, your spine's on your back, as everyone knows, but the injury had to be addressed from the front of the spine. So they had to do all that and then put everything back in place and stitch her up.
They put on the table and did their work, and then they put it back in again.
Threw it back in.
But there's pain behind Caroline's laughter. Her body is a miracle of surgical architecture.
They were able to replace my vertebrae with a cage and biological cement and bone from my hip that I can even move. It's not 100%, but it's better than it was. Here they come.
Goosey.
Come on, goosey.
Then there's the mental anguish. Nowadays, Bruce and Caroline live as near recluses on their property in Queensland. It's one of the few places they feel safe. Becky refuses to fly and lives with the trauma every day.
I can see how painful it is, these memories that you're still living with. It's still very real.
Very. Very.
How has this changed you?
I'm quite an emotional ball now. I saw psychologists. They diagnosed me with PTSD. It's not a fun thing to have when you're 17. I was medicated until I was pregnant with my first child. And that's when I had to come off them. And yeah, it's not a nice thing when you're a teenager.
Flight attendant Fuzzy Maeva can't work anymore because of his injuries.
I had to replace both knees. I've now got 2 titanium knees, and I ruptured a spleen in my spine. I have 7 damaged discs. That's the pain I get every day, and they trigger on the nightmares and the flashbacks. It's really severe, it's really bad. I can't even sleep properly at night. I toss and turn, and that's when the flashbacks come. And so in order for me to get around that, I keep hitting the wall just to ground myself.
Gee, Fuzzy, that is an enormous thing for one person to have to deal with. Even now, you're still having flashbacks, still hitting the wall.
Matt, it got to a point, the seriousness of it got to the point where I tried to take my own life. I ended up in ICU for a coma for a week. And because I couldn't take it any longer, the pain was unbearable. I'd been medically retired as well. And I thought to myself, what's happening? It was like I've been just discarded, you know.
Some of the victims of QF72 received 6-figure payouts, but not Fuzzy. As an employee, Qantas offered him just $33,000, a settlement he rejected on legal advice. In the end, this proud man was left with nothing.
Fuzzy, do you feel as though you were properly supported?
Like I said, you know, I have the greatest respect for Qantas.
It's a tough question, I know.
Yes.
I can see that even now you're reluctant to criticise the airline that you loved. But the reality is that for you, some support, any support, would have made the world of difference.
It would have helped me and my family a great deal, to be honest.
Kevin Sullivan didn't suffer any physical injuries, but the events of that day continued to haunt him. 3 years ago, he made the difficult decision to stop flying.
You hold on to those images, those memories, as if they were yesterday, and that's just what your brain does when you're in this sort of near-death traumatic experience. Your brain records in high definition, and it stays in there. It doesn't go away.
Qantas Flight 72 was cruising at 37,000 feet when the onboard computer suddenly went haywire, sending the plane hurtling downwards. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau blamed incorrect data for the emergency, but it hasn't been able to explain how or why that happened. It all sounds eerily similar to the recent Boeing MAX crashes. In those two cases, flight computers reacted to faulty data. The pilots couldn't regain control of their planes, and 346 people died.
It's important also to remember that while humans are often the least predictable part of the safety system, they are by far the most resilient and adaptable. The ones who can confront a challenge they've never seen before, and in a short period of time figure out a way to solve even that crisis.
Captain Chesley Sullenberger, the hero of the Hudson River landing, believes that replacing pilot skills with increased automation is a fatal mistake.
What we have learned in aviation is that automation does not decrease errors, but it changes the nature of errors that are made. As we use more and more technology in the cockpits, we must always make sure that the humans are in complete control of the aircraft and its flight path.
As a former elite fighter pilot, Kevin Sullivan had the skills to bring his plane down safely. The passengers and crew of QF-72 know they were incredibly lucky.
This guy saved my life, and he gave me an opportunity to be here, and I'm breathing. I'm here in the flesh because of that man.
Fuzzy Maeva is now campaigning to get Captain Sullivan and his flight crew the recognition they deserve.
I think they deserve the Qantas Diamond Chairman Award, and also the Cross of Valor. I believe that's the Australia's highest civilian bravery award. So if you're out there, please sign that petition so it'll help get Kevin and his men acknowledged and recognised for what they did.
We owe our lives to him, period.
Yep, everyone does.
Do you think he should be recognised for that?
Absolutely.
Knighted.
Knighted. He definitely saved 350 people's lives.
Yep.
Hero?
Definitely. Definitely, without a doubt.
What would you say to him?
Thank you. Give him a big hug.
Becky can't get on a plane to deliver that hug. But Fuzzy Maeva has bravely cast aside his fear of flying and flown from New Zealand to thank his hero in person.
And I know you still think about the passengers. They're very top of mind for you. We actually have one of them here now to say a bit of a hello.
Is that right?
He's just over there over your left shoulder. You might remember this young man.
Oh, mate. Good to see you, my brother.
Fuzzy.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Oh, mate. You look...
Welcome.
Thank you. Oh, my brother. Oh, mate.
Do you get...
Mate, good.
He has been dying to see you, Kev.
I have been, yeah.
Fuzzy, is this the first time you've flown?
Yes, this is the first time. Mate, I've been dying to meet up with you. You're the reason I'm here. If it wasn't for you, Kevin, we would not be here. And I'm serious. And a lot of people may have said that, you know, it's their job, they get paid for it. No, this is very unique. And that's why I was so passionate in trying to get this in the public realm to get the Qantas Group and the Australian government to acknowledge and recognise you, because this is something unique and it's just unheard of. You know, and that's why I'm so passionate, and I will never give up. I will never give up, you brother. I will never give up.
And those calls for recognition are taking off. What Kevin Sullivan achieved that day has come to represent a line in the sand for pilots who refuse to relinquish any more control of their planes to computers.
Captain Sullivan, from one Sully to another, I congratulate you on having built and led your team well in facing such an extreme crisis on QF-72, keeping your passengers and crew safe. And since you're a former U.S. Navy naval aviator and fighter pilot, Bravo, Zulu. I salute you.